Hey guys, what's up? It is week 371. I have an update and some reviews for you, but it is Pride Month, so this one is actually a really good start here. We have Ozon's Transgressive Triple from Altered Innocence, great company, released a lot of LGBTQ-friendly stuff, and they've released Knife plus Heart, which is one of my all-time favorite films in the recent years. And this is three early films by this director, and it's Sitcom, Criminal Lovers, and What Drops on Burning Rocks. Water Drops on Burning Rocks. Yeah, this one I only was familiar with Criminal Lovers, which is more the horror kind of one. But we're going to go in order here. We're going to start with Sitcom from 1998. Okay, so I put this in, and I really didn't know what to expect. Like I said, I was familiar with the director's work, Criminal Lovers, which I love. Spoiler. But Sitcom. So this pops in, and we have this kind of weird, strange family. We have a daughter who has a boyfriend. They're very sexual. And a son who's kind of nerdy, kind of an introvert. We have a father and a mother. They're kind of higher end. They have a nice upper middle class, I would say. And one day the father brings home this rat, this kind of lab rat. He's like, I fell in love with this rat. And the mother's not very happy with it at first. She's disgusted by it. But the son starts messing with the rat, not in a violent way, just kind of petting it and everything like that. And he seems to almost have an epiphany. And at dinner, out of nowhere, while they have the maid and the maid's boyfriend or husband with them eating as well, he just announces that he's a homosexual. So this director always has these kind of coming-of-age kind of story elements, a lot of homosexuality in there, weird kind of love triangles, finding yourself, a lot of relationships, kind of bizarre stuffs here. So the father doesn't seem to take it that hard. He starts talking about the ancient Greeks, which is also another speeches later on in one of the movies, too, talking about the ancient Greeks and homosexuality. But the mother seems to kind of flip out by it. He ends up going up to his room, and there's all these discussions, and as you kind of progress, we learn that this rat is sort of having this effect on people. The daughter attempts suicide, and she ends up paralyzed, and that puts a huge bend, a huge kind of the whole thing in the riff in the family. She doesn't want to be with her boyfriend anymore, starts hating him. She starts to kind of bend in weird ways, and she starts to become a sadomasochist. But this is all told in a really goofy, kind of creepy way. Goofy, no, I wouldn't say creepy, silly way. Like it's a sitcom. It's like brightly colored, almost like a television show in a lot of ways. But it's dark. It's very darkly humorous, and there's the family has fascinations. They start to fantasize in a really brutal way. It kind of opens up with a stinger, where it's like several months earlier. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was really funny. There's no all-and-out like hardcore sex or anything in that nature. You know, some of the alternate innocent stuff does kind of have that stuff, but this one did not. It's light, it's silly, it's funny. There's lots of great characters, and it gets completely absurdist. It's an absurdist kind of story. Again, a lab rat starts to change these people completely different. They make them realize things about themselves or what's in there and whatnot. But I really thought that Sitcom was great. I don't want to say it's better than the other two. I mean, they're all kind of on the same level. I'm going to lean more towards Criminal Lovers, of course, but Sitcom, really great stuff. Very funny, very entertaining. Recommended. The next one in this set is Criminal Lovers from 1999, and this had an old DVD. What company was it? Was it Strand or one of those companies? I remember I had that, watched it a couple times, and I think I might have covered it on this show before. It's good stuff. This director is Belgium, if I'm not mistaken. So, 1999, and people kind of lump this one in if they've seen it. It's kind of really underseen, especially in the America. They kind of lumped it in with the French Extreme. And I do think that it does have a little bit of that. So, what we have here is, the story's not exactly linear. We have this young couple in high school. And the more we kind of, two storylines. In the very beginning, we know that they committed some sort of crime and they're on the run. And we figure out why. We see the murder in the very beginning part of it. And we figure that this guy murdered a classmate and him and his girlfriend are on the run, kind of running. And we kind of have flashbacks to more why it was done. And we learn more about the two characters. And while they're in the woods, they kind of stumble across this, or I should say this hermit stumbles across them. And he ends up holding them hostage. And he starts to fatten the boy up. And keeps the girl kind of down in the cellar in kind of Evil Dead kind of style fashion. And he basically plans on eating them, is what we get the idea here. and he's also kind of hid the body that they redug up the body that they had, and pieces of that person is missing. It sounds a lot more. It is weird and highly sexual and coming of age, and the boy learns a lot about himself. There's definitely a huge homosexual bend in here, especially two other characters that were kind of like bullies that had like so like super masculine straight, but there was like homosexual tension between them big time. So like there's a lot of that kind of weird kind of stuff in here as well. Not, I wouldn't say weird, but just basically bringing up these kind of elements that people that portray themselves as extra straight. There is like this kind of stuff, especially with the jocks in there. But yeah, so the more we learn about the girl, you see the murder portrayed, performed by the man, but you learn more that she's more the catalyst for everything. I think the acting's really well done. I think the story's great, and I think it's kind of just an interesting kind of take. There's a couple sex scenes in here, disturbing, one of them for sure. But yeah, I would recommend Criminal Lovers, especially if you're into like the French New Wave kind of horror stuff. It's not as extreme as those, but it does have that kind of bend to it. I'm trying to think which ones would I compare it to. I don't know if it fits in there as much, but it does have that kind of. I don't want to say Calvaire, because I think Calvaire's much darker and funnier in a weird way, while this is just more kind of a little bit more dramatic. But I would recommend Criminal Lovers as well. Okay, the third in this set is Water Drops on the Rocks, and this one I didn't really know exactly what to expect. It's a minimal cast, minimal kind of locations, pretty much all in this apartment. And this is driven by amazing dialogue and amazing filmmaking and amazing characters and acting. But it does things that I didn't really register it was doing at first. When you have like basically four characters in a room just talking and having like kind of emotional things, and there is like sex and all that kind of stuff, you think that it might be kind of boring, or very bland when it comes to filmmaking. But the way the camera moves and the way the camera zooms in slowly and things like that, everything is picked really well. The framing is done, really well. And the slow zooms work really well. Now this is, again, I'd say a drama comedy, kind of coming of age story as well. So we have Franz and, what is his name? The kind of older gentleman. And you get this idea that he picked him up from the bar. They start talking. And this older guy is clearly trying to pick this young man up. And there's definitely some sexual tension between the two. And the guy's not really out. And he said, I don't know why I came here. I'm supposed to see my girlfriend. Maybe I'll leave now. And as they have this bigger discussion, they drink more. And it's Act 1, it says. And they eventually sleep together. And Act 2, we kind of open it up. And they seem to be a couple now. This older guy, he does business and all these things. And he's always on the road. But there's a little bit of tension. He is completely controlling. And just always stressed out and always treating him like poorly, but at the same time the young person doesn't really have a job. And it's kind of this element right here, right, where you look at these old and young relationships in a homosexual or in any relationship, kind of having that the older guy expects these certain things and this younger guy expects these certain things, and there's vanity from the older guy as well. He says, well, the guy guesses at one point, he's like, guess my age. He says 50. He's like, no one's ever guessed 50 before. It's like, but you are. He's like, yes. He's like, yeah, but I look younger, right? And it's just like, yes. I the vanity among like older men is very kind of the pride of how they look, especially someone who's still trying to hook up with younger people. It kind of has that weird thing in there and stuff like that. But there's more characters introduced, of course. His girlfriend ends up showing up because he feels neglected, and we have these acts keep passing. And it complicates things. And the way that she has this kind of idea of who he is towards her, it's really kind of depressing once the end of the film hits. And we have another character show up, a past lover of the older guy. And it complicates things with these four people. And, of course, it's going to turn into a sexual thing. And this guy's a complete narcissist. The way he says, it's like, you don't need, he's like, you don't need me. He's like, yeah, but you need me. And you're just like, yeah, it's kind of a line that he thinks, and he gets off on the control, and he gets off on kind of the people, you know, wanting him and needing him. But at the same time, saying all this, I'm making him out to be this monster villain in the movie. And, like, you're like, oh, he must be a, like, you know, Roach or something. It's like, no, he's very charming and funny, and he's a great character. And, like, at times you're like, I do kind of agree with him here or there. But for the most part, he's kind of an asshole, but he's just, he's got a control and a hold over these people because he is charming and he is kind of a good-looking guy and all this kind of stuff like that. But I thought this was really interesting. And the one thing that I noticed is we're 20 minutes into this movie before I even registered how far we were into this. The dialogue is very intense when he's in the first act, when he's trying to pick him up, and you're just like, where is this going to go? I do not know where it's going to go, and it just works really well. The dialogue is great. The performances are great. The pauses are great. The air in the room is great. The camera works good, too, because you don't realize the camera and the movements and the editing is doing things to keep your attention, but it really is. So all three of these are really good. Much better than I expected. I didn't really know what to expect. Criminal Lovers, I was like, it's a dark kind of screwed up movie. I didn't know that these other ones would be more light, more fun, you know. And I really enjoyed that. That's kind of like when I watched all the Claude Chabrol movies, and I was like, these are really fucking good. He's a really excellent director. And this is this guy's early career, too. So these are early films for him. So that's even more impressive that they're that well, you know, that he's found a voice already. And it's not so, you know, a lot of times directors early in their careers, their voice would be a little rough around the edges, but still great. And sometimes the directors work best with that raw power, right? That raw force. But these feel really, you know, completed, like complete films, complete ideas, you know. It's so much more complicated and well thought out and stuff, but these are all great. As far as the interview, I mean the special features, we have a new interview with actor Stéphane Redu, commentary track for Water Drops on Burning Rocks by Cerise Howard and Rohan Spung, Little Deaths, Lost and Coming of Age in François Ozon's first chapter, a video essay by Kat Ellinger. That's really good stuff. Love Kat Ellinger. Talks about the coming of age, talks about all the relationships in these movies and whatnot, breaks all three of them down. I thought it was a really good supplemental kind of featurette thing, but I love this. These are all good, and you know, it's good to leave your comfort zone when you're so used to horror movies or westerns or something like that, you know, popping in some Belgium kind of you know, kind of drama, comedy, absurdist movies. Criminal Lovers, not so much a comedy, maybe there's some dark comedy in there, but you know, it's not as light or as crazy as fun as the other two, although the third one does have some really kind of sad moments as well. But I really like this. All well acted, all well directed, good stuff. This is Ozon's Transgressive Triple. Great stuff. Okay, the next one is, I got this in the mail recently for my Vinegar Syndrome order from May, and this is a VSA of The Instructor, starring Bob Chaney, who is like a super, you know, a grandmaster of martial arts, black belt, and this is one of these early kind of martial arts vanity projects. Now, Bob Chaney didn't direct it. He stars in it, but the director, actually editor, producer, writer, he's actually in it as well as kind of his sidekick named Thumper. So it is somewhat of a vanity project, and you watch these kind of amateur kind of movies. I don't want to say amateur, you know, I would say independent, because it's independent films like, you know, Streets of Darkness, which is kind of an action film, or Miami Connection, where these movies are outside the Hollywood world and they have their own cast and their own groups. And at times you watch and you're like, yeah, this seems a little hokey in places. Maybe the dialogue, maybe the acting, somebody's going a little over the top. You know, this is you know, martial arts actors from a school. Even something like that really wild Mad Foxes, where you're like, are these actors? There just seem like a martial arts school in there, and all these kind of weird kind of elements like that. This is pretty early for this. Like, they say it's made in 81, not released till like 84, so it's kind of early in that kind of cycle of these weird kind of vanity martial arts projects. Vanity films are strange, like, because you can get ones that are really bad and just awful and unwatchable, and some people laugh at them, and then you're like, it just feels shitty laughing at somebody else's hard work, or their delusions of grandeur. Or you can have one that is low, rough around the edges, maybe sometimes funny, but still like well done enough to be entertaining, and the ambition is there. So you're like, you know, or you'll be like, yeah, this is, and then you'll see some shit, you're like, wow, this is kind of impressive at points. And you know what? I'm kind of there with this one. The Instructor, there's some silly moments, there's some ridiculousness, but at the same time, it does have a certain charm to it. And I would say the same thing about Tim Ritter's early movies, like Truth or Dare or Killing Spree, where you're like, this has some rough around the edges, goofy shit. Maybe it's not perfect, but the more you watch it, the more you're with it. You're like, I kind of like it. I kind of into it, you know, these kind of different flavor of that you would normally get, you know. You can only watch so many Steven Seagal movies or something like that. But, so The Instructor basically basically follows the story of Bob Chaney. He is a martial arts instructor. He has like an arch nemesis who he used to be friends with, who runs another school, who's kind of an evil crime guy. At the same time, there's kind of this perverted guy wandering around, kind of screwing things up, wears a ninja suit, and we even get inner monologue, which is absolutely fucking hilarious by this guy. He's like, if I had a good, this girl's cute, maybe she'd like me if I had a trophy. If she didn't, I'd punch her in her face. And you're just like, what the fuck? It's just weird. He's a bizarre character. So what happens is they're kind of always butting heads with this other kind of martial arts gang that they're doing all these kind of different crimes, and they're kind of trying to infiltrate their school and ruin it, all sorts of shit like that. In the very beginning of the movie, which I think is a reshoot because this got picked up by Glickenhaus, just Shapiro kind of deal. Shapiro, which distributed the Glickenhaus movies. So I think that this was distributed by the Shapiro group later on. So, like, they had to shoot some more action scenes. In the very beginning, it's like this weird kind of Warriors kind of style thing where they run across this absolutely ridiculous gang where you're like, are these guys in a trauma? Are these in Toxic Avenger 2 villains where they're all dressed in these weird outfits? They don't match. It's pretty weird. It's pretty bizarre, but it's fun. And, you know, Bob Chaney and Thumper whoop some ass, especially Bob Chaney. He whoops all these guys' asses. And the fight stuff is pretty fun for the most part, you know. It's not always directed or edited perfectly, especially this stuff because they had to have a stand-in at one point because he was injured. But later on, especially, there's a pretty long car chase. I was kind of impressed with that. I was like, geez, I'm surprised by this. And then a foot chase, and they're running through the water. They're driving motorcycles through the water. I was like, this has gone above and beyond what I expected in terms of just danger and stunts and shit. And I was like, that's pretty impressive, honestly. Like, and especially, not the dog on a lot of independent movie now. It's like, safety always comes first, which it should, for sure. But this was a time, you know, where it wasn't always the case. And you watch stuff like Deadbeat at Dawn, or this. Deadbeat at Dawn it's one of my favorite movies. I held it in high regard compared to this. But, I mean, like, that's some dangerous ass shit. And I know it's a time and a place for that. But, I can't not show my love for those kind of movies. And I don't expect people to make them like that anymore. But, man, what a time. What a time for film. But, yeah, so there's some stuff in here that's pretty intense. Some of the dialogue's absolutely fucking hilarious. Some of it is nonsensical. Some of it is awkward and bad. But, you know, it's entertaining in a way, and I'm not trying to laugh at it. It's just like some of it, there's a lot of nut shots, which I like seeing too. Yeah, I love nut shots. But it's just because there's a lot of like street fighting, and you know, got 3 or 4 guys on you, you're like, man, fuck this guy, I'm gonna hit him in his nuts. He's coming after me, and you're just like, yeah, I think they would. Like, so there's like some cheap shots from the good guys hitting guys too because they're coming at him. But there's a karate tournament as well. Anyways, I thought The Instructor was pretty freaking fun and entertaining, and I had not really heard anything about this, to be honest. And, you know, I've seen a lot of the cult, like Miami Connections or Dangerous Men, or those kind of oddball, weird movies, or, of course, Deadbeat at Dawn, which was made in Dayton, Ohio, and this was made in Akron, Ohio, so there's some similarity. Later on, of course, the Tempe guys would make all their stuff. Probably around the same time, 84, this was released widely. You know, Bookwalter and crew were probably prepping up to make Dead Next Door. And Bever made, you know, the Deadbeat at Dawn in 88, 87, 88, and then his earlier stuff too. So, like, his shorts is in a Dayton, Ohio area. So, like, it does have that Ohio feel. Beyond Dreams Door is another one made, I think, in Columbus, early, mid 80s and stuff. So, like, I'm from Ohio. I know the Ohio feel. It's there. I knew I kind of liked it right away because of it, and I just felt kind of rested into it and kind of just felt good about it. So, you know, anyways, I do enjoy The Instructor. I think it's a lot of fun. As far as the special features are concerned, we do have a commentary track with writer-director and the Don Bendel, and a journey to Akron, the making of Instructor, 25 minutes interview with writer-director Don Bendel, and he helped talking about all this kind of stuff too. And put some context on it, you know, and he comes across like a pretty decent, solid guy and stuff, you know, and they seem like they had a good time making it. A hard time. It wasn't perfect, but you know, he seemed to have some decent memories. Bob Chaney since passed, R.I.P. He just seems like Bob Chaney seemed like a nice guy, a likable guy too. But yeah, I would recommend checking The Instructor out. It's at least as a curiosity. It's bizarre and weird, but check it out. Okay, this next one here, now I know I don't condone bootlegging movies that are widely available, but this is kind of a special thing. You know, movies that are hard to find or impossible to find or weird cuts. I know, whatever, I'm not saying not, but you know, I've done it. We all done it. Movies that are impossible to get, or they would be dead somewhere. No one would ever see them ever again. But you know, there's a guy who does these things on Facebook and a lot of the groups, and he makes like these. He does AI and upscales and does all sorts of crazy things with old movies that aren't released and everything like that. Roy Dam. MOD made, what is his company? It's on the back here. What does it say? MOD, basically, is what he goes by here. So, Dawn of the Dead is my third favorite film ever made. And I have, of course, the 4K set. I bought the movie on VHS twice, on DVD twice, on Blu-ray a couple times, you know, imports, all sorts of things. And, of course, I have the 4K. From Second Sight. So this is the Monroeville mall cut, which is basically the longest cut. It takes, you know, the extended cut, the can cut, and the Euro cut, and it kind of mixes them together and whatnot, and uses as many long takes as it possibly can to get the most footage. Now, doing that, of course, you're going to have kind of jarring edits at times, or weird sound bumps, or music coming in, going out. You're going to use the longest take possible of that scene. So, like, oh, that's goblin music. No, it's cutting back to the library stuff, the DeWolf library. So it's going to be jarring. If you're not familiar with the film Dawn of the Dead, I mean, I've covered it here a million times. It's the sequel to Night of the Living Dead. This is 1978 by George Romero. It's an independent film. It was one of the biggest independent films of all time. It's insane. It carries the zombie saga on. So what he did was he essentially made a new opening with AI and Ken Foree's voice, and they're kind of narrating with Night of the Living Dead footage. And there's a little thing at the end with, you know, Day of the Dead footage. And they have the Dawn of the Dead, you know, goblin music playing on that, which is kind of cool. But the AI kind of stuff with Ken Foree talking about it, they basically, if you watch the Dead films, essentially, you know, you're watching 68 Night of the Living Dead, it reflects the time it was made, the technology in that. Dawn of the Dead is a sequel, but it reflects the time it was made in 78. Day of the Dead is a sequel, 85. It reflects the time it was made in, right? It's a progression of the plague as you see it, or the zombie outbreak as you see it, but it's reflecting the time it's made because it's social satire and it's doing all these things and making these comments on, you know, society and all these things. But if you had to make it in a timeline, you had to say, you know, this is a timeline, that's what that opening does, because it's trying to carry this in an actual, like, real timeline, like we got the virus down 10 years and it came back to Dawn of the Dead, because in reality, I don't think in the Romero world that it's supposed to have that big gap of 10 years in between them. But if you're making something like this and trying to connect them in that way, you have to do it that kind of way. So I know the AI Ken Foree voice is going to kind of drive some people crazy. It is what it is. You know, this supercut's going to drive some people crazy, but in reality, listen, I'm a huge super fan of these Romero films and in zombie films in general. So I am interested in having a hard copy of the Monroe Mall cut hours. And I've seen it before. I think the edition I saw is probably different cuts and all those things. But, you know, it's cool to see everything at once, together, you know. Since I've seen, you know, the con cut or extended cut a million times and the theatrical cut a million times, which the theatrical cut is the preferred version. Always watch the theatrical cut first. If you're ever going to see this movie for the first time or show somebody, show them the theatrical cut. Do not show them this cut, because the music is going to be jarring, the cuts are going to be jarring to someone who's not familiar with the fucking movie, right? They're going to go, well, that music, what that's weird. And I know some people have watched that Monroeville Mall cut, the extended cut, for the first time, like, oh, that's not good. It's like, you're watching not a real cut, you're watching all these fucking weird edits and shit. No wonder it doesn't make any sense to you, or the acting's off, or whatnot. But, to be honest, so like the Euro cut was the one I've seen the least. I've seen it a handful of times, but it always has, you know, the longer goblin music, the less drama, the less character development, the less comedy. It's more of an action film. But there's scenes in that I do really love. Let's say the lady gets bit. Killed. You're going to be able to chop off her head. That whole thing is perfect. There's different takes and alternate dialogue within scenes, especially the opening. It's fact that whole argument is different. Everything is completely different. This one time I did notice in here there's a missing dialogue piece that's probably in the theatrical and can, but he switched it out for the Euro cut. The rednecks are probably enjoying this whole thing. That's not in here. When when the crew flies over and sees the guys shooting all the zombies and stuff, there's a line that he says the rednecks are probably enjoying this whole thing. That's not in here. That's the only thing I noticed missing. But then again, there's a different line in that place for it. Maybe it's a longer take, whatnot. But that line is missing. Unless I missed it, but maybe not. This time I noticed around here that there's about 7 or possibly 8 bikers that die. You know, it's hard to tell when you're watching it, but seeing all the footage together, it's a little easier. I've always kind of memorized all the bikers seen this movie so many frickin' times, of course. You know, you have the 4 that go upstairs after Ken Foree. All 4 of them bite it. Sledge, Blades included. And then one is the classic actor, Marty something. He's in a bunch of, not classic, but he's an actor who's in a bunch of these. And Nick Tallo is the other. Those 4 all bite it. And then, of course, we have the Booba brothers, who one in the Blood Pressure Machine, one with the poncho. They both bite it. That makes 6. Then we have 7, Larry Vera, or Mousy, I think is what they call him, with the machine gun, gets shot off and he flips off. That'd be 7. All 7 of them bite it for sure. But, of course, you know, there's the guy who goes through the plate glass window, also played by Tom Savini, but you got to assume he's probably dead too. So that'd be 8, but you really don't see much about that. Plus, it's double Savini. So it's 7 or 8 bikers die. It's crazy, you know, all this time thinking about that, you know, when you're counting, you're like, oh, he died too, but there's footage of guys getting up and running away, and you're like, maybe he didn't die, you know, all that kind of stuff. But it's really cool to watch all these cuts. He enhanced some stuff with AI, and it looks really cool, different. And I mean, this is not the cut to watch all the time or see for the first time, but it's a cut to watch if you're a fan of Dawn of the Dead and you're interested in seeing this kind of shit. I am. So I'm going to watch it. And I did enjoy it. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's one of my all-time favorite movies, so seeing anything Dawn of the Dead is kind of cool to me. There'll be a time when I guess they're making full AI movies. They're filling in AI scenes, and it's going to be a pretty crazy fucking time. Maybe it will get seamless, and everybody's just making AI movies on their computer. It sounds scary, but it's going to be a weird time, guys. Hopefully I'm around to see some of it. But yeah, the Dawn of the Dead Monroeville Mall cut. Bizarre. Cool. If you're interested, you know, the Facebook groups, you'll see it pop up. If you're in any of the Dawn of the Dead groups, it's going to be there as well. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's $25 shipped, so there you go. All right, guys, let's hop into those 1982 movies. Yay!
I know I'm human. If you were all these things, then you just attack me right now. So some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to. But it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why? Why?
For a girl like you to come into my life, I've been waiting for a girl like you, the love that will survive. I've been waiting, someone new to make me feel alive. Yeah, waiting for a girl like you to come into my life.
You bitch! You called me a bitch!
What's in the basket?
stop it. There's no more time. You've got to... Please, stop it. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop
Alright, we're in these 1982 movies. The first one up is one that I'd not really heard much about. It's a Vinegar Syndrome release, and this is Double Exposure. And now I was like, this can be more in the thriller vein. And I guess I would say thriller, but I think it is a horror movie through and through. So I had this on the old Scorpion DVD, and I never watched it. That's my MO, right? But that's why I love going through the years. Retro years, starting in the 80s and 70s. But, you know, seeing all the movies that I've had in my collection for 20 years, then I would say that Double Exposure is kind of a hidden fucking gem. So what we have here is this kind of I don't even really know what his job is, but he kind of his brother is a stuntman. He's missing an arm and a leg, and he's a photographer, of course, right? How could I forget he's a photographer? That is every perverted possible strangler in any movie from the 80s. He's like, my job's a photographer. Look at Kurt Smith and Don't Answer the Phone, or Murder Lust. The guy, he's a photographer, you know. And it's funny, Jeffrey Dahmer used to pick people up by saying, "Hey, I just want to take some pictures of you." That's just like a killer's MO. It's like, "Hey, I'm a photographer, eh? Come on. You know, take some pictures." I'm pretty sure Miss 45, one of the people, is like a photographer too. Fucking quintessential pervert job in a movie in the 80s. But anyways, Double Exposure here. Great title for the title, of course, you know what I mean? The two brothers, the photographs, all that stuff. So this guy's having horrible nightmares. He's kind of a middle-aged guy. He's had a lot of shaky life and all these kind of things, and this is a very sweaty movie. Everybody in this fucking thing is sweaty. But he's having these nightmares of these women being killed in brutal ways. And of course, some of them start popping up dead. His brother also has some issues and stuff like that. He's visiting a psychiatrist. Who is the actor who plays the psychiatrist? I don't want to forget him. It's a classic kind of character actor. And like, if I don't see it, it's going to drive me. Seymour Castle. How could I forget Seymour Castle from stuff like Beer League and Dick Tracy and stuff like that? He's a great actor. Yeah, he pops up in this one, and he's like his psychiatrist. And he meets this girl eventually, and they start to have a good relationship. And he seems to get laid a lot for a middle-aged photographer, you know what I mean? I guess that's the job to get laid in, I guess, in the 80s. Is he's just having sex with a lot of people, it seems like. And it seems like, you know, it's pretty easy in this movie. Everybody's just kind of free with it. A lot of nudity, a lot of sex. You got a layer of sleaze too, but he starts to think that he's killing these people, and we kind of have a bridge to his life where there's obviously some mommy issues. He doesn't want to talk about it, and he starts to really like this girl. And he's having these horrible nightmares of these people getting killed. And the kills are pretty good. They're pretty crazy. But, yeah, of course, there's going to be a twist at the very end. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was well made. I thought it was well acted. I thought it had the perfect amount of sleaze. The characters are all pretty solid. The acting is pretty solid. All good performances, you know. And I did think that, you know, it kind of threw me for a loop. I figured it was one of two things. It had to be one of two things. The guy with one arm and one leg actually is missing these parts. He had a car accident, and he pops up in, of course, Something Wicked This Way Comes. You know, the guy makes the wish, the football player who wants his arm and, you know, his life back and everything like that. This is the same actor in here, which I'm a huge fan of Something Wicked This Way Comes, and watch it for 83 when we get there. But, yeah, so this is really good. I was very happy with it. I thought it was much better than expected. Nice hidden gem. But as far as the special features, we have newly scanned from the 2K from 35mm original camera negative, commentary track with director William Byron Hillman, exposing Double Exposure, interview with cinematographer Michael Stringer, staying on task interview with script supervisor Sally Stringer, isolated score by composer Jack Golga. Yeah, anyways, I really recommend this. I would check this one out. It's got plenty of nudity, plenty of that sleazy kind of, you know, point of view killings and stuff like that. Bits of Maniac in there for sure, but Double Exposure. If you thought this was going to be more of just a standard sexy thriller or something, you're like, Double Exposure is much more of a horror film than I thought it would be, and it's sleazy and just got that great kind of vibe to it. I would recommend this one. Good stuff. Okay, we're jumping into this box set again. Magic, Myth, and Mutilation. The micro-budget cinema of Michael J. Murphy, 1967 to 2015. And the first one we watched from this was Death in the Family from 1981. And now he's got a couple from 1982. These ones were probably his most popular movies. I think that a lot of people talked about it. We're going to start this one up with, what is it? The Last Night in the Invitation to Hell. So this one is bizarre. All his movies are kind of bizarre. And the first one I ever saw was Bloodstream for 85, and I did not like it at all. But Michael Murphy is growing on me a little bit. I did like Death in the Family from 81, decent amount. And I have to say that watching this one here, Invitation to Hell, not to be confused with the Wes Craven film from maybe 78? Is it before or after? Somewhere around this time. 78 to 83, that's when the time frame of that movie is. I think Summer of Fear 78. This one's got to be 83, 84. Probably, I don't remember 100%, somewhere around that time. But this one here, 82. So this girl gets invited to this kind of party on a farm, and there's these masks and all these things, and she kind of gets drugged, and she wakes up. She doesn't know what the fuck's going on. She's like, why was I drugged? Why am I still here? And some of her friends are there as well, and she's like, I'm leaving. It's like, they won't let you leave. And all her friends are acting bizarre. Turns out that they, when they were working on this farm, they awoken some sort of evil demon, which reminds me of definitely folk horror, especially after watching like the folk horror documentary and stuff like that. You kind of have that element, or what is it, Crowhaven Farm, right? There's just something on this farm that they awoke and they shouldn't. So it's a cool concept. Evil kind of people being taken over or controlled. What was the one that I watched? City of the Dead as well with Christopher Lee. But not necessarily those, but these people are being controlled. They're stuck there. There's one guy who's kind of slow, and he seems to be the most, possessed by this satanic element that's on this farm. They won't let her leave, and it turns out she's a virgin, and they want her to give birth to the devil's son. So people start to get picked off that want to leave by, Maurice or Morris. I think they say Morris, but in the subtitles it says Maurice. I think it's supposed to be Morris. But they start picking, people off here and there in semi-gory detail until, of course, they're trying to escape. The characters are not exactly, the smartest. The acting is not exact. It's amateur's acting, kind of like this review. It's not professional. It's not professional grade, but, it's a little shaky in places. The dialogue's a little bad. The argument's like, I'm going to leave. It's like, you can't leave. You have to stay. But I don't want to stay. It's like, it's very British. It's very kind of, kind of dull dialogue. But for the most part, it's short. It's decent, and I kind of enjoyed it. I like the idea of being trapped on finding the Satan on a farm. It's just scary as shit. You dug up the wrong thing. You're stuck. You read out of a book. Think Evil Dead or whatever kind of movie you want to think. And this probably predates when they saw Evil Dead. I doubt they saw it in 81 or 82 when it was kind of barely released. But Invitation to Hell, I enjoyed it for what it is. Low budget, kind of horror, satanic stuff. There's two versions of it. One that was the original and then one that was released in like early 2008 or something like that. And I had that old DVD with the double on there and I never watched it. Hey, sound familiar, right? That's exactly what I do. But Invitation to Hell, enjoyable enough. Okay, the next one by Michael J. Murphy is The Last Night. And this is more of kind of a slasher element in the vein of, being trapped in a theater. What was the one? Is that Monster of the Opera from the Dance Macabre? Is that one, or is that a different one? I think that one's an opera horror, but then we have, of course, Dario Argento's opera, but we have the movies where you're actually trapped on stage, like Stage Fright by Michele Soave, or even the other Stage Fright, or there's one from the Giallo's set, the Vinegar Syndrome put out, where they literally get the doors closed and there's just a killer picking them off. That's kind of in that vein, right? So what we have here is The Last Night of this kind of corny play, and they're performing in front of a big audience, a bigger audience, 15 people or something like that. It's like the big turnout, and these two kind of escaped convicts break in and they sneak in the backstage, and they end up letting their presence be known after killing a couple people to a handful of these people. And of course they're murderous thugs. They're gonna rape and kill and whatever, any means necessary to get the fuck out of here and get not get caught. So basically we have Morris. He's playing another of the crazy people, as well as another guy is who is in the last film. Pretty much the same cast here. They start to kill people. They try to survive. This is kind of clever at times because, of course, they're like saying things on stage, but they're looking off stage, and there's like the killers waiting for them. Like, don't give this shit away. So there's kind of some decent suspense. I think this one's probably a little bit better put together. I don't know if it's as interesting because the story's not as interesting, but I had fun with this one. Kind of a slasher kind of deal. The acting's about the same. I'd say maybe a tad little bit better, but this one's definitely hornier than the last one. Maybe not. They both have some horny streaks in there, but yeah, the last night kind of enjoyable at the same time. Seeing this low budget kind of British horror, because you know, at this time, you know, I trying to think of any more low budget British horror films, and it really wasn't a thing. You know, like I'm thinking, you know, they had some films from the early 80s and stuff, like, you know, the Amicus and Hammer, and those guys were still working at certain points, and they make productions like American Werewolf in London the year before, but Venom is a British production, but they could have the do-it-yourself kind of shit, like, you know, Sam Raimi kind of deal in Britain. I guess, you know, Michael Murphy's their answer. So check these out if you're interested. See low-budget filmmaking in British style. I mean, Death Shock was last year as well, and that definitely was low budget. So yeah, some weird kind of low budget British films from this time. There's not too many of them that I can think of. Next one here is made for TV, if I'm not mistaken, Japanese film by the director of Houseboat and School and Crosshairs. Obayashi, I think is his name. Probably mispronounced that. Definitely mispronounced that. And this one is called Cute Devil. It's another hidden gem from '82, man. I had never heard of this movie really until kind of like when I start doing the years. I go through all the years. I've done a bunch of years, and I start looking at the titles. I'm like, what is that? I don't really know much about that. No one's ever brought this movie up to me or talked about it. But Japanese TV movie, kind of in the vein of Carrie and kind of Bad Seed, which is cool. Now, what we have here in the very beginning of the movie, this girl's uncle. He's getting married to this beautiful girl, and she has this veil, and her soon-to-be kind of niece is like, can I have that veil? I want that veil. And she's like, well, I can't. I'm getting married in it. So kind of basically, the kind of, it would be niece, yeah. Kind of, it's like, go away, we're playing. And she eventually corners this woman, the soon-to-be bride, says, well, can I have it when you die? She's like, yes, you can have it when I die. Of course, we're not going to wait too long, because she comes flying out of the second-story window and brutally dies, breaks everything. The husband, of course, is destroyed, and the little girl gets the veil. We kind of cut back to another thing happening simultaneously in Sweden, and this girl, actually the sister of the bride who just died, is with her boyfriend. They get in this big argument, and she says, I wish you were dead. And then we hear an accident happen. She dies. I mean, he dies. Her boyfriend had just got killed. So we're thinking, is this some sort of telekinetic thing that both these people have? And we don't really dive too deep into it to let them know if they do, but they both wished for somebody to die, and they both died, so they share that bond. She ends up in the mental hospital because she feels completely responsible for it, right? And she ends up moving in with her the little girl's mom, because that is the husband's brother, and he's like, oh, I want to take care of my bride's, you know, sister, and well, my would-be wife's sister, and my sister doesn't have much to do. She's alone. Her husband's dead, and they have the daughter, so they move him in there, and she's obviously not well completely, and this little girl and her both, maybe they have powers, maybe they don't, but she starts to suspect pretty soon that something's off, and she wants to go visit the scene of where her sister died, and things start to get complicated. There's this perverted guy, which reminds me of Bad Seed, right? We have the perverted guy who like gets killed in the Bad Seed, who's like hiding in the fucking, he like does all the handiwork and stuff like that. And he's kind of the same way. That's why I'm saying it's a lot like Bad Seed, right? And he sees something he shouldn't. Of course, this is kind of a remake of Bad Seed in a weird way, a Japanese kind of style by the guy who did Houseboat. It's a weird fucking movie. But there's a lot of cool shit. The camera work's great. It's got a great look to it. The acting's great. The little girl is super creepy, super effective performance. I really like the main girl too. And you know, it's about kind of control and law, like what the little girl wants. You know, she has no conscience, and there's some murders. Some people do end up dead, but overall, I really like this. And it ends really tragically and really very sad, and it's completely depressing. But Cute Devil, really recommend this if you can see it. Check it out. This is right for rediscovery or discovery, because I never heard anyone talk about it. It's from a great director. a very popular director who made some really cool fucking movies. And just maybe the rights are hard to find, this TV movie, but there's a decent looking print of it if you can find it. And I would recommend Cute Devil. Yeah, great title too. This one I didn't really know what to expect, but I was very happy with it. Good stuff. All right, the next one here is a South African movie called Claws. I don't know why I said it like that, but my accents are not getting better. I don't even know what the fuck that was. But Claws, not to be confused with another movie called Claws, which is about a killer grizzly bear. I don't remember what year that came out. I don't remember. I'll probably get to it eventually. I have not seen it. But this is Claws, and this is more of a coming-of-age kind of drama film. So we're on South Africa, and this father is on a farm. He gets hurt on a horse, and they're like, we got to take him to the hospital. It's so far away. The mom goes with them. The kid gets left behind. He's a very young kid. They say, well, you got the one guy, he'll come and help and check on you and all this kind of stuff like that. He has a dog that he's very connected to. And right away, there's almost a fire. Tragically, tragedy almost strikes right when his parents leave. He gets the fire out. He gets mad at the dog. And pretty soon before he knows it, the chickens start to end up getting killed. And we got some sort of wild animal or possibly monster out there picking things off. The little kid's got to be by himself. He's got to become a man. He's got to take his rifle out into the woods and stop the clawed creature. It ends up being some sort of wildcat. I'm spoiling it because this movie is really boring and really uneventful. Yeah, it's a kid wandering in the wilderness trying to save his dog. It's not poorly acted. It's not poorly directed. I mean, I guess it's boring, which is bad, but that's script. It's just not much happens. Not much goes on. When you think of other movies or coming of age weird movies with kids wandering in the woods, like Frog Dreaming or some shit, like that's a weird ass movie. That's pretty cool. But this one, you're like, the fuck is this? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just not much going on. It's not the worst movie ever made. It's just not very eventful. Not a great film. Wouldn't really recommend it. Might be one of the worst, along with Curse of the Screaming Dead that I've watched from 82 so far. I can't believe I'm in like almost 55, 60 movies and I still haven't got my 1981 essay out. I'm working on it. It's taking fucking forever, guys. I managed to use so many clips, almost over 222 movies. All the movies that I talked about and review make an appearance besides like 4, but the only reason those don't is because obviously copyright or a couple other reasons, but I managed to squeeze in as many clips as I possibly fucking could, and it took a long time to gather all them clips and the scenes and the movies and render the formats to make sure that they could go in fucking Adobe. That's why it's taking so long, guys. It's a lot of work, and I hope it does well. If it doesn't, maybe I won't do 82. But yeah, Claws. Nah. Pass. Okay, so it's Pride Month, and it's a Patreon pick, and it's perfect to do this in this month, and this is Hellbent. What year? 2004 slasher film, gay-oriented, and in 2004 there wasn't that many gay-oriented like slasher or horror films. I mean, people were like, well, you had Cruisin', you had Killer Condom, you had, of course, what was the, I'm trying to think, there's not too many besides that. I mean, there's a couple that came out later, Queer Wolf was the guy, the Curse of the Queer Wolf, and Mark Pira and stuff like that. But later on, you get Knife Plus Heart, Cruisin' was there. But, there wasn't that many gay-oriented films like that back in the early 2000s. And 2000s, and early 2000s, it was very vanilla cast. After Scream, everyone's like, we need a bunch of cute white guys and girls doing their thing and straight, just kind of getting picked off by a killer. Maybe we'll throw in a black guy for color, and he might be in the background or something for 5 seconds. That's Usher or some shit like that. I mean, movies were very bland back in the early 2000s. American films were. And you know what? I'm not a huge fan of those Scream ripoffs. It's not my thing. But Hellbent, I had never watched this for years. And you know what? I should have. Because it's actually pretty good. So we pop in, and it's very gay. You can tell it's a very gay film. But we follow 4 characters kind of on Halloween. They're all dressed up. They're all doing their thing. They're all going to go out and have a crazy kind of party. The main guy has always wanted to be a cop. He had something wrong with his eye, so it kind of pushed him out there. So he's kind of a quiet, reserved type. And the friends are all kind of ridiculous personalities, over the top. But they end up going out and they end up getting picked off. It reminds me a lot of a low-budget Hellfest because the parties are pretty big. And Hellfest is a really fun, cool movie. But so what happens is they go to this party, and before they get there, there's been a killing, a bunch of killings, and they're chopping the heads off. There's almost a sex scene, and these 2 get killed. Pretty gory, pretty well done for the most part. There's some CGI that's not great. But they end up going to this party, and they start getting picked off by this killer. Our main guy has his eyes on this guy that he's been seeing around and everything like that. But they basically established their 4 main characters pretty well. They're fairly well acted. Some of the side people in here are not well acted at all, and these aren't like actors that have this long list of credits. So maybe they're just the director knew them, or maybe they actually are like people from the gay community. I'm not really sure. There's not too much I know about this film, to be honest. It could have a nice little Blu-ray release from Vinegar Syndrome or someone else, or Terrorvision. I would definitely buy it. So what happens is the characters start to get picked off by this crazy killer. The killer is kind of like a devil mask and everything like that. And there's a showdown at the end. It's a good, solid slasher film with well-established characters. There's some funny moments. My only complaint is, for as many as gay-oriented as this is, as much skin as you see, I mean, you don't really see any hardcore stuff, and you don't have a real full-out sex scene. Like, there's about to be tons of sex scenes. Well, maybe they didn't want to go far enough, but you might as well have the sex scene, right? Just do the sex scene. You should have a sex scene in a gay slasher oriented. They would definitely do it now. I mean, you see Knife Plus Heart, and it's like boundaries have been pushed much further. And I think that probably they're like, we want to be semi-mainstream. But really, this was a movie that I don't think there's anything quite like it at the time. I mean, it's very much like the slashers at the time, just a little bit better. But it has some money towards it. But it's got the gay-oriented bend to it, and it makes it a little bit more interesting than a lot of the shit that was coming out in 2004. I enjoyed it. Hellbent's pretty good. Better than expected, honestly, and I don't know why it took forever to watch it. I hear mixed things about it, but, I'm not very picky. There's another one that's gay-oriented, Frat House Massacre, that Synapse put out. That's years later, though. Again, 2004. Trying to think. Like I said, you had Cruisin', you had Open Windows, and you had Killer Condom. I know I'm probably missing a bunch of them. Then you had Auto or Up with Dead People years later. But yeah, Hellbent, good stuff. All right, questions, comments, concerns, all that jazz. Beyond's 55, Raw Meat has got to be one of the most underrated Donald Pleasance films. What an insane movie. The first couple times I watched Raw Meat, I liked it, didn't love it, and the more I think about it, I think that, by Gary Sherman, of course, great director, I think that Raw Meat's actually pretty great. Donald Pleasance is very good in it. Love his scene with Christopher Lee, of course. Stephen Cowie, and The Wonder. The Wonder in the beginning of that movie is excellent. Stephen Cowie, How I Love the Sender, the last scene, etc. Yeah, it's a pretty good movie. Pretty wild movie. Hospital horror, of course. Nick Mua from Belgium. I'm pretty sure I want to add The Lamp to my wish list. It looks like some genuine 80s campy fun. I've always loved Wishmaster. I'll enjoy this one too, right? I mean, it's not quite like Wishmaster. I won't say that. I love you. I love that you keep unearthing classic gialli. They almost always excellent, or they very least watchable. You're not sponsored by Giallo Mafia, are you? No, I am not. Maybe the Gelato Mafia. Delicious. But, what do we got here? Questions. Would you ever use a lamp or monkey's paw, knowing what happens in most stories and movies? Maybe you can beat those odds. Not a genie. Not a lamp. Genies are evil. I would not fuck with a genie. Monkey's paw. Man, I don't know. I've thought about it, Probably not. Leave well enough alone. My life sucks as it is. What's your favorite Edwidge Fenwick giallo? Is Edwidge Fenwick in The Strange Vice of Mrs. Worth? I think she is. Man, it's hard to remember, but that one's great. That one's spectacular. She's also All Colors of the Dark. It's got to be any of the Martino movies she's in are top-notch. Go with any of the Martino ones she's in. She's great in those. If you were the killer in a giallo, what would be your crazy, tragic backstory? I mean, if I could control my backstory, why would I have a crazy one? But I don't know. Here's one that I always wanted to write. If I was acting, this is not me, I would want to play a father who murdered he had when he was young, he murdered some young girls in a weird kind of thing where he was rejected, Tenebrae, right? And now he's moved on past that, he's covered that up, he doesn't remember it. It's almost like a repressed memory. And the time he did commit the murders, there were cicadas. So the cicadas, and I know that there's the Bloodhook movie did it, but I had this idea before I saw Bloodhook. So the cicadas, it was the time when they came out, right? Like 7 years, every 17 years, whenever it happened. It's that time again that the cicadas come out, and his daughter is graduating, college or high school or something like that. And what triggers it is seeing all the young girls and the cicadas coming out, and he starts to have his memory all fucked up. It'd be called Cry of the Cicada. It'd be a giallo, and you find out the father is the killer, and he's reoccurring these murders that he committed like 7 or 17 years ago because the cicadas have fucked him up, and he's seeing his daughter turn into a woman, and it triggers all these fucked up thoughts and the rejection and his hatred for women, like all these giallos would. So he starts picking them off and killing his daughter's friends until eventually he's going to come after his daughter, right? And he's going to have some weird incestuous stuff. That would be a cool job. But yeah, I guess I'd play the dad at this point. But just because I wanted to talk about that movie. So, excellent show per usual. Arrivederci, Dave. I can't say that word, but it's Italian, obviously. Here's Negan. I miss seeing you. I can't believe how long it's been. I miss you too, bud. That's a friend of mine. Explosive Action. I really did dig Murder by Phone, but I know it by its AKA Bells, which runs much longer. I think I definitely watched the longest cut I possibly could. I think mine did say Bells in the beginning as well. But, you know, online there's just, you have so many different cuts and everything like that. Rob Jabaz. I love to see Dennis Weaver TV movie Super Episode, Bluffing It, and Cocaine, One Man Seduction are two of the funniest movies I've ever had the pleasure of seeing. I've not seen those, but I definitely would. It's so funny they're making like the Whores of Cocaine. It's like, you know, they're doing coke all the fucking time on the set. Like, man, this movie's gonna really change some people's minds. But Ilk Vomit, how do I obtain a copy of the Dawn Blu-ray? Check the Facebook groups and all those kind of things like Cult Collectibles. You'll see that around there. And if you can't find it, shoot me a message on Facebook. Ken Coakley, I love old Mel Brooks comedies. And I should mention, I have a correction to make. I mentioned that fucking... I could have swore that Slim Pickens was the voice of the Sheriff of Nottingham in the Robin Hood 73 cartoon. He's not. He's fucking not. That guy's doing a Slim Pickens impression or something. I have not seen that. I can't believe it's not Slim Pickens. It's like, I can't believe it's not Butter. I can't believe it's not Slim Pickens. But Ken Coakley, I love old Mel Brooks comedies. High Anxiety was another hilarious movie. It parodied the films of Alfred Hitchcock, who is a technical consultant. My favorite Brooks film is Young Frankenstein, which I saw as a double feature with MASH when I was a kid. My second favorite is Blazing Saddles. I wasn't allowed to see it until it was re-released in '79. The movie was wall-to-wall laughs. The original choice for Bart was Richard Pryor, who co-wrote the script, but Pryor was too much of a drug addict, so they cast the popular comedian Flip Wilson. But he had to back out, so they got Cleavon Little, who was just in a movie I watched this week. Was he in Double Exposure? Gene Wilder was a late addition. Gig Young was supposed to play the Waco Kid, as the character was supposed to be an older, burnout gunfighter, but Young had a health episode because of his alcoholism, so they hired Gene Wilder. Yeah, Gig Young would have been really weird in that role. I can't help but picture him in that every time, and bring me the head of Alfredo Garcia, just looking fucking unhinged as hell. The humor was kind of dated, such as Harvey Korman's Hedley Lamar character was named after European actress Hedy Lamar, who helped create the technology of wireless communications in WW2. Then later, the technology was used for cell phones. The Gabby Johnson character was based on the character actor Gabby Hayes, who did a lot of Roy Rogers films. He was played by Jack Scarrett, who played the corrupt deputy in First Blood. He also did some biker films, such as The Born Losers and Hell's Angels on Wheels. I think he's also in Pandemonium, the 82 kind of parody horror film. Howard Johnson was played by John Hillerman, who went on to co-star on Magnum P.I. Also, one of the Johnsons is from Big Lebowski. The film had an unusual premiere in Hollywood. It was screened at the drive-in where the customers had to attend the premiere on horseback. The film was very controversial, but served a purpose. It took racism and slapped it in its ugly face. Burton Gilliam, who played Lyle, the young cowboy with donkey teeth, said in an interview that he was uncomfortable using slurs, but Cleavon Little told him that he knew that Gilliam was just acting. The film became a TV show called Black Bart, starring Lou Gossett Jr. in the title role. It was very good, though. It wasn't very good, though. I forgot to mention last week that Young Guns director Christopher Kane is the stepfather of actor Dean Cain. That's crazy. Did not know that. Hudson3838. Hi, Dave. Hi, Tired Dave. You should have done a question of the week. Top 10 old scary people in movies. Here's mine. 10. Betty Davis and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Minnie Cassavette and Rosemary's Baby, Grandpa in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Residents, The Hospital, and The Exorcist 3, Gladys Foster in Legion, 5, Pearl and Howard in X, Mrs. Kirsch in It Chapter 2, 3, Papa Nana in The Visit, Deborah Logan in Taking of Deborah Logan, and my number 1 is Sylvia Ganesh in Drag Me to Hell. P.S. So Dave, I just remembered 2 more that should be on the list, Reverend Kane, Poltergeist 2, and Tall Man's Phantasm. How could I forget those 2 buttes? I must be getting old. Not as old as them, though, right? Thank God. Way Up Dude gives me a thumbs up, thank you. And David Leather, Mario Bava is the GOAT, Blood and Black Lace. Mario Bava may just be the GOAT indeed. Let's hop into this update. Alright, let's get into this update. First up is Riddle of Fire, and this is one of the VS Vinegar Syndrome lines, I think, for contemporary films that they put out. I don't know too much about this. Man, it's getting like one of those Russian dolls where you got to take out like 37 slipcovers to get through it. And I speak of it, we have a broken gnome. Not necessarily a Russian doll, but close enough. This looks very bizarre. But yeah, let me put this away. So many slipcovers. Then we have Lifeline, Johnny Toe. I've watched a couple of his films. Yeah, pretty good stuff. I'm looking forward to this. This is a VSA. 4K here. Ugh. More slip covers again. It's the first VSA 4K, I think. And we have Navy SEALs here. Another Special Vinegar Syndrome. It's been a long time since I watched Navy SEALs. I remember having a good cast. Dennis Haysbert, Michael Biehn, Charlie Sheen, Bill Paxton. I don't even know how to get this thing out. Oh, we have this back open up? Yeah, there we go. Man, jeez Louise. Take longer opening all these things. We've got a 4K here. I remember this being pretty solid. Not like my favorite movie ever. I had an old MGM DVD. But yeah, I remember liking it to a certain extent. I'm interested to watch it in 4K. I mean, it's a crazy time to be alive, right? Navy SEALs in this deluxe edition on 4K. Then we have Dangerous Game, Abel Ferrara movie, of course, with Harvey Keitel. And I've seen part of this. It's been years. Don't know if I ever seen the whole thing, but yeah. This is one of the new labels. This is actually like a Vinegar Syndrome, like actual like label, one of theirs, like the VSAs and stuff. Same with this one. We have the Ripper, which is not. This is SOV, I believe. Yeah, this is definitely with Savini. Yeah, this always was famous. VCI had that set, Blood Cult, Revenge, and the Ripper. And we have Blood Cult. We have Revenge on Blu-ray. And then we have the Ripper on Blu-ray as well. We don't have Blood Cult yet, which is arguably the most popular of the three films, a very popular SOV. Then we have the old ones from Dark Star. This is Chad Farron, who directed Unspeakable and that the Pig Willie Picton movie, who just recently died. Fuck Willie Picton though. The Canadian cannibal pig guy, or fed all those poor women and pigs, and then fed the pigs the people. Crazy case, but yeah, that's the director of this one, Chad Farron. I'm interested in checking it out. He also did Parasites, which I really liked. Then we have Game of Pleasure here. This is VHS Shitfest, which is hilarious. Is it actually Shitfest, or am I just being an asshole? I think it is VHS Shitfest, yeah, which is great, because we all like to buy shitty movies, of course. At least they ain't hiding nothing. That looks like fun, though. Game of Pleasure. What else do we have here? What is that? L'important chess damer? I mean, guys, don't. I hate French. I can't do French. I could do it if I heard it pronounced out loud. The most important thing, love. Okay, this is a Zulawski movie. Of course, the director of Possession. Very popular film. Very popular director. And that looks like Fabio Testi there. Very much. And Romy Schneider from Ghost of Love. So, I mean, two actors I really like, so interesting stuff. Then we have Samurai Wolf 1 and 2 from Film Movement. I almost bought these, so I'm glad that Vinegar Syndrome put it on his partner label, and I got to pick it up for a discount. I do like Film Movement. Pretty cool stuff. Then we have a Saturn's Core here. What is this? Larry Wessel's, I don't even know how to say that. Ultramegalopolis. Okay. Sounds cool. I think this is a documentary, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I am. 2 hours Psycha tour on the vast post, right? Yeah. I'm not usually into buying the contemporary docs, honestly, but I picked this up because I've collected the Saturn's Core line this entire time. So, Houseboat Horror. I've seen this slasher years ago. This is put out by Umbrella. I had the old DVD, and it was like an import. Yeah. I remember this being corny, cheesy, crappy, slasher fun, so let's see if I'm still correct on that. But we're out of here. I also got the Instructor, but I covered that for the review, so won't be showing it here. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.